All right. Google Hangouts says we're live, so we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to In the Pocket, presented by CrossBonesMMA. My name is Eddie Law. We have Jesse Ruvalcaba. You've seen him here before, of course, and Dave, straight out of Albuquerque. How you doing, Dave?
Good. Good to be back on. We have a little hiatus from some MMA and the UFC side, but Bellator tomorrow. A couple things happening as always, so I'll be back on with you guys.
Definitely. And the thing is, too, is definitely, but like, wow, I got like 3 sounds going in my ear, so I have to mute some shit. Sorry. Anyway, so it sounded like I was like retarded for a second. So not like I don't always sound like I'm retarded, but I'm just saying. All right, just letting everybody know. It's all good. All right, Jesse, it's still crazy hot over there because I hear people from LA complaining and bitching about the temperature.
Nah, Monday was bad, but these last couple days, I mean, it's been nice. It's been breezy. It's time to hit the beach about this time.
There you go. I've been driving around Phoenix. I see people dropping left and right. I'm not even kidding. On bus stops and shit. They're like 911 is constantly getting called for people with heat stroke. It's still crazy. So if you're anywhere near Arizona, get the fuck out or stay inside. Don't go outside. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we had UFC Ottawa went down this last weekend. Rory McDonald versus Stephen Thompson. Wow, I was going to say Josh Thompson. Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, of course. And the fight, look, that was one fight where everyone was kind of 50-50. It was pretty even, right? A lot of people were like, either you were all the way Wonder Boy or you were all the way Rory. Very few people were like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Very few people were like, very few people were in the middle, right? It was a lot of people going Wonder Boy or going Rory. So that was to me, the interesting part of that whole thing. Shout out here to Mike Jarves, who's on the YouTube, Andrew Reed. Jody's on here with, she's talking about the beach. I don't know where she lives, but I'm assuming it's nowhere near the beach. So what's up to all of you? Appreciate you guys tuning in. All right. Of course, talk UFC Ottawa. First fight of the night was Ali Bagatinov. And the reason I want to talk about this fight is because I thought Bagatinov was done. After the testing positive after fighting DJ. First of all, how do you take EPO and still gas out? I mean, I get DJ's got some crazy cardio, but damn, you went out of your way to cheat to stay out with him, and you couldn't stay with him. That says a lot about DJ's, conditioning and everything, and his ability to fight at that pace. But I mean, it was crazy. But Dave, I mean, you saw the fight. Gina Herrera, it seemed like he couldn't pull the trigger or was unwilling to pull the trigger. It was a weird fight to me. But what do you think about Bagatinov here? You think he makes another run at the title?
Yeah, like you said, credit to Mighty Mouse. I mean, what he had to go through, he's putting everything into Bagatinov, laying into him in the later rounds, really getting on him. He obviously had the EPO thing happen. Bagatinov, yeah, he's been taking care of business. All his opponents are really, top level guys in that division, real thin division. Mighty Mouse is actually, fighting Wilson Race. I think he's ranked, he's in the top 10, I believe, but anybody in between there, just below, I mean, Mighty Mouse has took care of business against all of them. There's still some good fights for Bagatinov. I think at that division, there's a couple guys that dropped down. But yeah, I think he strings together a couple more wins. Some interesting matchups for him in the future, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to talk about this fight because everyone expected, and I'm jumping on ahead of fight. Jesse, you have anything you want to say about Bagatinov? I was going to jump over to the Random Marcos fight for you.
No, I mean, just to like put a little button on that, like, I'm with you guys. I also wrote him off, but you know what? I'm still not convinced. I mean, we've seen how Herrera has kind of been inconsistent, and I think this was one of those performances where he just didn't perform. And unfortunately, I had it really, really wrong on the Cowboy fight, but I still think I need to be proven that Bagatinov is still the competitor that he was before. Kind of like Cowboy, I still think I need one good performance at 170 to really ride that train, because, Cowboy is also an inconsistent fighter. But Bagatinov, he showed some potential. But I'm still not writing him in the column of a future contender yet. I need to see a little bit more out of him.
Definitely. We'll get to the Cowboy fight first, sure, because it was a different Cowboy, in my opinion. Or it was... Yeah, he looked like an assassin. We'll talk about that in a few minutes here. Random Marcos against Jocelyn Jones-Leibberger. Of course, Random Marcos from training out of Michigan top team for this one. She's trained at TriStar for a bit. Of course, fighting in her home or adopted home country. She had the red hair, and it was funny because everyone was talking about how it takes a lot of maintenance to keep her hair red, and how she was like during training she would leave red all over her training partners. I thought that was funny as shit because it wasn't blood; it was her freaking hair dye, But Jesse, what did you see from Random Marcos? Were you impressed at all? Because I hate to say that I wasn't. I really was not impressed with Random Marcos in that fight. It was a weird fight for me. What did you think of the fight?
I agree with you. Again, man, I, I think I have to write off Jocelyn at this point. She just hasn't been able to show up in these fights. The thing that really made me sad about this fight, I wanted to be excited about Ronda Marcos, but missing weight, having all the extra time to be able to make weight, and you still don't, get up to make the weight. That to me just signifies that either she's having some sort of problems, a biological problem on her own, or like she just didn't care enough to get down to the weight and she needed that extra edge, mentally or something. So who knows what was going on? She missed weight. I just, it was a weird performance by her just getting to the scale. So I don't know, man. It was a weird fight. I'm kind of sad that, I think Jocelyn Lieberger is now like 0-2 in the UFC, so I'm seeing that she's probably not going to be in the UFC too much longer. And like I had said on our breakdown show, I was pretty hyped to see her, kind of flourish and show off her skills, and she's just not doing it here.
Yeah, definitely. Her first UFC fight was, of course, on short notice. I believe it was like a 2-week notice, almost 2-week notice. And this one was a full camp. I was just like you. I was excited to see what Jocelyn Lieberger, had to bring MMA Lab product. Of course, I know the MMA Lab knows they got Benson Henderson, a bunch of guys over there, training and killing it. It was weird to see her in that full camp, Dave. And Randa Marcos seemed like it was weird. Like, first, I'll give Randa Marcos credit for the fact that she just kept coming forward, and that was great. No matter what Jocelyn threw at her, she just kept coming forward. But it's just nothing impressed me about her, and that bothers me for some reason. What do you think of Randa Marcos?
I have to agree with you guys. Not necessarily impressed with anything she did in the fight. The fight played out exactly the way I see it playing out. It would have been a big win for Lieberger had she, got the win in impressive fashion on her end. She needed the win. I see her kind of being phased out of the UFC somewhat here in the near future. Kind of disappointing that Marcos didn't take advantage of the weight cutting and the weigh-in time and stuff like that, because a lot of fighters have been doing that. And then she ends up, having to forfeit some of her purse. So that's never a good thing with any type of fight. So especially with the pay scale, what it is with the Reebok with them. So definitely not impressed. I think she's got a couple of other fights. She'll get another turnaround fight, I think, pretty quickly here in a couple months. So.
Yeah, hopefully. Real quick, we don't do a lot of breaking news on this one, but I'm getting tweets now. We've heard recently that Anthony Rumble Johnson was out of his fight with Glover Teixeira. Looks like Glover Teixeira is out of the event as well. Not sure. I don't have any details yet, and I haven't read any details on whether he's out due to the fact that they couldn't find him a fight, or if he's also injured. But now we get neither guy. And people were hoping that Gustafsson was going to jump into that fight, even though Gus had a fight coming up against Blachowicz, I think. I don't think anyone would have complained at all if they made that rematch or that matchup. Sorry, that matchup with Glover. So it's weird news. We'll talk about that, of course, after we talk about the card. But just letting you guys know, Glover's out, Rumble's out. That fight's completely out. I think they need a new main event now. So yeah, it sucks. I was really upset about losing Rumble on that one. A couple of comments here on the YouTube. Andrew Reed saying her red hair is gorgeous. Her fighting not quite so much. Jody saying the red hair was the highlight of the fight. And Mike Jarvis agreeing that he's not sold on Randa at all. Mm-hmm. Jody saying Glover said, "Fuck it, I'm out, bitches." Like, I don't blame him. I mean, they gave him Glover, or they gave him Gustafsson to be a weird fight for him. But of course, we'll talk about that in a second here. Moving on to the next fight here, we should talk about, and we should talk about it, and we definitely shouldn't. We should talk about it because it was awful, but we shouldn't talk about it because it was awful. Okay, Sam Alvey against Elias Theodorou. Coming into that fight, we're expecting. Look, and we said it. I said it in the breakdown show. Sam Alvey is one of the most accurate, if not the most accurate striker in the UFC. I can't think of names that would be better, but and Elias Theodorou is a high volume, very aggressive striker. We were expecting bombs to be thrown. Instead, we saw Elias Theodorou punching a heavy bag the entire fight. That's all it was. So to me, I was very disappointed in that fight. In fact, credit Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey himself said, that people were tweeting like, "I missed the fight. I gotta go check it out. I gotta go watch it." And Sam Alvey himself said, "Don't bother. Don't even bother." So he knew that it was a pretty crappy fight. Dave, what do you think of that fight? And I mean, I'm not saying Sam Alvey's done, but we know about confidence in athletes. And do you think it was a confidence issue? He couldn't pull the trigger, or his game plan was just shot to shit?
Yeah, it could be a combination of a couple of those things. I think, maybe possibly the game plan. When he got in there and seen what Theodorou was going to, the way he's going to pursue him, what he's going to do early in the first round, kind of dictated with the way that fight played out. Of course, Theodoro, definitely didn't want to get into another the Santos bout. Well, what happened to him in that one. He really didn't. It kind of, just did his thing, did what he needed to do to win the fight. Sometimes, yeah, that's what fighters do. Disappointing though, a lot of hype behind this one. Everybody expected him to go in there and kind of, duke it out at least for majority of a round or a round and a half or so. But it was a total opposite. It was a little bit of a downer part of the card. Everything else, with that card, it was an exciting card overall. So this was sort of a expected fight, in which it turned out to be, the fight that really nobody really cared about in the end. So, but props to Theodoro. He got the win. He did what he needed to do in there. So you got to win in Canada. So he did what he needed to do.
Yeah, but and again, you can't blame Elias Theodoro too much, right? There's fights where people call him boring, and it wasn't necessarily one fighter's fault, right? Because it takes two to tango, it takes two to fight, and if one guy doesn't even bother engaging, that's not a fight at all. It's an awful sparring session, in fact. So it was really weird. Jesse, Alvey threw no strikes. It took him. He almost went the entire first round without throwing a strike. I think he threw like a handful. It was like nothing. Elias was throwing here and there, moving a lot, getting away from him. It looked like Elias was definitely showed up to fight. Sam Alvey did not. What do you think of the fight?
Yeah, I think it was a very weird fight. But you know what? I think the shining point was that Elias didn't fall into that trap of where a lot of fighters fall into, that where if their opponent's not engaging, they stop engaging as well, or they get like too much into their own head, or like, okay, what's he setting up? What's he trying to do? And they just stand there, At least he still tried to engage in the fight. Yeah, I don't know, man. Sam Alvey, who knows, man? Sometimes, you get a little gun shy after you've been in a gunfight, and you come up on the losing end. I think that's going to be a focal point from my end, honestly, on the main event coming up here in a few minutes, but when we get to it. But I just think it's one of those things where, the more you get in there, the more you test yourself again, and you prove to yourself, like mentally, that you can stay in there, and get in those gunfights again. Then it'll come back to you. But I think in not taking the risk at least a little bit, Sam Alvey kind of sold himself short. So, hopefully we can get him back in there, get him another fight, and hopefully he can, get past this. What I think is probably more of a mental thing than anything.
Yeah, and Andrew Reed letting us know in the YouTube comments that Sam Alvey threw a whopping one strike in the first round. One.
Nice.
Solid, one strike. That's all he got. And it was a weird, incredibly weird performance from the guy, and I've never seen him stop smiling, and he legit stopped smiling. So, at this point, like, let the little gimmicky smiley shit thing go for now, and focus on training, and and show up focused and everything. But for a guy that's had knockout power, knocked dudes out with one hit before, or one punch before, it was very disappointing in my in my opinion. Now here's a fight that was insane. Okay, Joe Soto got his ass whooped the entire first round. In fact, about a round and a half, I would say. About halfway through the second round, Joe Soto took over finally. But Chris Beal fucking picked him apart. And for Soto to do kind of almost like a comeback win, I mean, it was a submission win. It was a rear naked choke, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was. In the third round, that to me was one of the more exciting fights of the entire night. It was an insane fight. Jesse, watching that fight, Chris Beal picking him off, Joe Soto looking for openings. Joe Soto getting decked. I mean, he got hit a lot. Looking for shots, couldn't get one. Looking for shots, couldn't get it. To finally, get that fight to the ground around the second round, and then the third round, pretty much dominate and choke out Chris Beal. It's a huge win for Joe Soto, a guy that was like, I think he was like 0-3 in the UFC. Of course, you guys remember 24-hour notice fight to fight TJ Dillashaw for the title. Just an insane story for Joe Soto. So, Jesse, what do you think of Joe Soto's performance there, and what do you think we should expect from him in the future?
Man, more like 18-hour notice for that fight, because it was right at weigh-ins.
Yeah.
It's so hard because, we talk about how he's a former champion and everything, and, he came in with a lot of hype, and it just seems like he's not living up to the potential yet. I mean, it almost seems like he needs to round out his game a lot more before he can really be a contender, and it sucks because Chris Beal isn't really an impressive guy, and for a guy that, kind of, you could kind of say like a what is it, a journeyman type fighter, a guy that you can plug into any organization, and he's gonna get some wins, get some losses, but really put people through the motion of a fight. That guy shouldn't be beating you up like that. You should be able to really avoid taking that much damage, and really neutralize what he's trying to do to you. I mean, it's not a good look, and I think Joe Soto. It's just, where does he go from here? You can't really put him up against the top echelon of that division, because you're just going to crush him again. So I really don't know. And I think, like we had talked about, I think they were kind of giving him this fight as a gimme to kind of build up his confidence, and I don't think it did that at all. I think it just kind of exposed him more. So yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe a change of training camp or something. His jiu-jitsu's on point, but he's got to just patch up a lot of holes in a short amount of time.
No, yeah, definitely, and yeah, definitely. It seemed like it was a fight they gave him, build him up a little bit. He got a kind of a raw deal in his last couple fights, but definitely the first one. But the second one, I think he got finished by Burchak, if I'm not mistaken. It was he's got a raw deal, so we're trying to make it up to him a little bit. But Dave, he showed a ton of heart, man. That guy who took everything Beal had and more, and then finish the fight. I mean, heart takes you a long way. Now, you're over in Albuquerque. You're in that. You're always in that Jackson's MMA camp, gym. There's a lot of guys with heart in that gym for sure. So you know what that looks like. Joe Soto. I mean, skill and everything in the ground game and the toughness. Can heart get you far enough in the UFC?
Yeah, for him, fighting the competition that he has fought. I mean, starting out in the UFC and getting thrown into the mix. Fighting TJ Dillashaw, we did give him a pass on that. I think everybody would give him that pass on such a short notice. He definitely needed this win. This win was set up for him, to fight guys of his skill level and kind of where he's at. I mean, Beal, none of us picked him. None of us seen him, winning the fight. He was very impressive in the first round. He really dictated the pace of it. He looked real sharp. Eventually, Soto did get the bout to the ground. He did finish the fight with like a minute left, I believe, or a minute and some change. So late submission, him getting the finish overall kind of made it give the fight an extra flash for him. But in that division in 135, they're just such killers in the top 20, top 15. These guys are a little bit past that. So if they keep Joe Soto, just fighting the some even level competition. Beal, right? There's a couple guys. There's some fights I'd consider for Soto going forward, but he got thrown in the mix against Dillashaw, so he actually seen what it is to be right at the top, fighting a top-level guy and rate himself in there. But he needs to definitely improve on his skills. Didn't look good, took a lot of damage, but definitely a necessary win for Soto. Good for him.
Yeah, getting that W is a more important part in the UFC. You need wins just to stay on the team, on the roster, right? You can't win, you're not staying on, man. Nobody's going to be in there with an 0-10 record or whatever it is and still fighting the UFC. It's not going to happen. So it's just good for him.
Unless your name is Dan Hardy and you're getting exciting fights in there, then you can go. What was he 0-5 before he finally got a win?
Yeah, but that was back in the day before they had a bunch of killers that trained since they were young. Okay, it's different, a little different. Which, by the way, Dan Hardy, please come back as soon as possible. Get cleared. Hopefully they clear him. I want to see him fight at least one more time before he's done. All right, next fight up. Let's just talk about it real quick because it was actually a pretty damn quick fight. Christoph Jocko knocking out the Barn Cat. That was a nice knockout. Definitely. I mean, I don't know if you got a bonus for that or not. Do you guys know?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got the performance of the night, possibly. I think so.
Look, if he didn't get a bonus, he deserves one because that was nice. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A few words on it, Dave. What do you think of the knockout?
Yeah, good for Jotko. I mean, he's climbing the rankings in that division, tough division. I think he might be close to the top 20 right now. I think, what is he on, a 4-fight win streak? Unfortunately, he has that only loss to Magnus Salenblad, but other than that, an unblemished record. So he's in a tough division, but he's climbing those rankings. I think he's about to crack the top 20 if he's just outside of it right now. A very impressive knockout. I did pick Jotko. I went against Barn Cat, but yeah, this is definitely, I think, where my pick started to go the opposite route. But Jotko definitely brought it that night, and yeah, he's a game guy at 185. So.
Yeah, no, I picked Barn Cat. I just honestly because of the nickname. That's the only reason I picked him. So that definitely flew up in my face. But Jesse, what do you think of that? I mean, Barn Cat's 1-1 in his return to the UFC. One more knockout, he's probably gone permanently. Don't you think?
Again. Yeah, unfortunately, it was just such a quick fight, you know. You really can't say that he made so many mistakes or he was
Hmm.
picked apart, you know. It's one of those things where, I mean, it was just a beautiful
Got
setup and
caught.
then a beautiful execution, you know. Yeah, he didn't really get caught. I mean, Jotko really did set up that punch right before he landed it. You know, he kind of saw his opening and went for it, but I don't know, man. I'm really hard pressed to write off guys after one knockout.
Hmm.
I gotta see them get beaten a couple times in a row. But we all want. I think us as fans, hardcore fans, we want the Barn Cat to do well. You know, he's kind of one of those guys that's been around for a long time. So I think we're at least gonna see him at least once or twice more before they kind of scoot him off back to Bellator or wherever.
Yeah, and when Barncat came back, there was a lot of excitement because he's Barncat. So you were hoping that he was gonna do something crazy. All right, next fight up, let's talk about JoJo Calderwood against Valerie Letourneau. First of all, Valerie Letourneau she's as advertised, tough as hell, and took a lot of what JoJo threw at her. Overall, the fight was all right until Reebok fucked it up because that's basically what happened. I mean, her bra. Look, according to Letourneau, her bra was actually under, like it fell off and was under her, her breasts and everything. So, by the way, real quick, that's weird that no guy can say breasts without like giggling to himself a little bit, right? Like it's a little weird. Like we should be past this shit, but we're not. So I'm still 5 apparently. Anyway, so now she wasn't the only one to complain about about any kind of wardrobe malfunction. JoJo was saying that it was kind of loose. There, her outfit was kind of loose as well. So thanks a lot, Reebok, fucking that up. But other than that, very tough fight here. Jesse, pretty big win for JoJo. It was a finish. Now the finish, you can say whatever you want about the ref. I wasn't happy about him letting Valerie take shots from behind like that. But especially after she had stopped basically almost like backed up on her own like 2 or 3 times at that point. So the ref just letting JoJo land on her like that was to me was pretty messed up. But what do you think of the fight? And is this the JoJo we've been waiting for, or was it just circumstance that Valerie just couldn't fight back?
Half and half. I would say. I think this is still not the best JoJo we could possibly see. But there was a lot of flashes of brilliance in that performance. Valerie, man, what a tough chick. I think all in all, she had a lacerated liver or something like that
Mm-hmm.
at the end of
They
that
jacked
fight.
her up. Yep.
Um, Damn, dude. If I drink too much and my liver gets a little swollen, I'm down for the weekend or something. Man, she had a lacerated liver. Man, screw that. Yeah, it's unfortunate, that the Reebok stuff is just not working out. I mean, why don't they get some of these fighters to show them what they need? Like, hey, look, this is a shirt that or a rash guard that I like. This is the sports bra that works the best for me. Doesn't do this. Modify it, put your name on it, whatever. Why don't they do this? Like, it's like Reebok doesn't care about their equipment looking like crap out there. But hey, Reebok, let's not make any changes for the Misha Tate fight. That'd be pretty nice. But other than that,
This guy. It's
it was a great performance. Great performance by JoJo. Finally seeing her at least have a little bit more fun in that fight. Sad to hear afterwards that she was saying that she was completely broke and she
Yeah.
was hoping to get a performance bonus, but apparently Dana White is taking care of that. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, hopefully he did take care of that 'cause she deserves it. Honestly, she deserved. Say I guess whatever we say about how the fight went, everything. She still finished the fight, and it was still a pretty damn impressive performance coming out of JoJo, who we all expected, Dave, from the very beginning of her start in the UFC, for her to be a Muay Thai killer. I mean, they call her Dr. Neville. That's her handle on Twitter. That chick has mad knees, and she hasn't been able to just let loose before this fight. In this fight, she finally looked a little more comfortable and like she was, ready and willing to trade with anybody. And so I'm happy she got, that the UFC took care of her. But, you know, Valerie Letourneau, no, let me back up here for a second on these two fighters here. This whole division, now, this fight was at 125, right? So let's just roll back and say they're still 115ers. This whole division is so young, it's so new, that it's hard to cut anybody, right? And I don't think Valerie Letourneau's going to get cut. I think she's too raw, too tough, too much of a game fighter to get cut. But I mean, her performance. I don't know. The whole white fight was weird for me. What did you take away from the fight?
Yeah, the entire fight changed. I remember she caught her with that vicious elbow, and then she looked to be out completely out, and then she jumped on her. She took a lot of damage right there at that point. She immediately, I think, gets back to her feet, right in the pocket, right back up to it. I think she was badly hurt from that. The fight completely changed after that. So I know for sure Calderwood did shine. She looked good. She was consistent in displaying her skills in that octagon. She looked to be, like she mentioned, she was a little bit broke afterwards, so she's pursuing a bonus, so really laying it all out there. I guess that's kind of the way the fight sort of played out for her. But definitely after that elbow, everything changed big time. Val was in big trouble. It was really close to being stopped. So props to Val. She's tough as shit. She hung in there. Unfortunately, that random Reebok wardrobe malfunction. So that's weird as hell that that's been happening. I know it actually happened to Uriah on UFC 199. So it's just happening and just weird times it's popping up, and we don't know when the next it's going to show up again. So, but yeah, they do need to do something about that with Reebok, and I know that's kind of the reason why they had the little issue with Stitch. It's because Stitch said he'd like to have something designed specifically for him. Dana went ahead and just said, all right, peace out, Stitch, we'll see you later. But yeah, they really need to work with these fighters and get everything worked out on the wardrobe. It's just a random thing to happen, and it ended up being like sort of a changing of the fight, which Val was still in, and unfortunately she had to take some shots, and then the fight was called. So, but yeah, Val, there's still going to be fights for both these women. The divisions are so slim, like you said, Eddie. Yeah, it's tough to cut any of them, and I think Calderwood plans to return to 115, so that's where she's going to be at, I believe.
Yeah, look, if Roy Nelson has any kind of wardrobe malfunction, we riot. I don't give a fuck. Okay, that whole arena better fucking find Dana White and demand that Reebok is just cut to shit, because I don't want to see none of that shit. And nobody wants to see none of that shit, okay? Just let that shit go. Anyway.
Hey, but man, who was it, that first woman fighter that, I mean, her whole breast got exposed?
Yeah, we saw that.
What was it, a couple months ago? I mean, think about that. Think how embarrassing it is for that fighter. Now her business is out there forever. It's not like it's going to go away. And I think the safety of the fighters, of not having to worry about that is pretty important. And like Dave was saying, I mean, who wants to see Uriah's butt crack? We already see his front little butt crack that he has. We don't want to see the back one too, dude.
You get two butt
now
cracks.
that I think about it too, I think it happened to Ronda Rousey. I don't know if it was a UFC fight or if when it was back in Strikeforce. It did happen to Ronda as well.
Yeah.
She got into a point where she was in a choke and she had to defend the choke, or think about pulling her top up. So it was a weird thing that happened to actually Ronda Rousey. Now that I think about it,
it was their first fight in the UFC. It was against Liz Carmouche.
Oh yeah, Liz Carmouche had her back.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that fight. That's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple comments here from the YouTube. Jody just went for it and just put boobs with a million exclamation parts after it. Let's see. Jody said, this was an exciting fight. Glad Jojo got the bonus to keep training at TriStar. She also got a new contract. Thank you, Mike, for reminding us. She got a new contract, so that's good. Jody says Val won't get cut, but she said she won't go back to 115. So hopefully that 125 is a thing. Or if she moves it to 135, she's tough, but it's that'd be a rough go for her at 135. All right, let's talk about the fight was alright. Let's talk about the fight that was insane. Steve Bosse, is it Bosse or Boss or how do you say his last name? Anyone know?
Bosse,
I believe.
All right, cool. Steve Bosse against Sean O'Connell. The fucks were thrown out the building for this one. It was fun as hell to watch. I thought they were gonna kill each other. And here's the thing: as soon as I saw that it went past the first round, I thought that was it. You know what I mean? I thought this is gonna go, this is gonna go all the way, and both of these guys are gonna be fucked up. And it was awesome to see the fight go down the way it did. Dave, do you enjoy this kind? I mean, look, I love these kind of fights. They're not very technical, but let's look at it from a different perspective. Guys that fight like these guys did in this fight, they're not guys that we are ever gonna expect to fight for a title, right? We just expect these guys to have fun fights. I mean, I don't know how to put it. These are the kind of guys that aren't in it for sport, it seems, right? They're in it to brawl. They're in it to just to fight. So what do you think about fights like these, and what do you think about this fight in particular?
Yeah, I do enjoy these type of fights. Sometimes these guys are trying to rise up the rankings. They do want to get up and get a fight of the night bonus, get a TKO, and get a nice flashy victory. This one in particular just happened to be perfectly timed on the card. It was actually good matchmaking. These guys definitely were down to bang. It was perfect timing for this bout. Yeah, it's really just the way it ended up going. It was Max Holloway and and Lamas the last 15 seconds for 3 rounds at a heavier weight class. So I really enjoyed it. I think it was a really close fight. I mean, I didn't think it was really cut and dry decision. It was close. Either guy winning the fight, I was okay with. But then again, I did pick O'Connell, so that's one of my picks that went the opposite way, which only 3 the entire night I picked wrong. So I was kind of upset on that. But overall, the card was fantastic. The part of it, towards the top of the card, started to really produce, and this was one of the fights that kind of sparked the rest of the evening off.
Yeah. Real quick, Jesse, did you feel an earthquake?
No.
Oh, okay. So it was like a earthquake near Santa Monica. I don't know if you're near there. Are you?
No, not even close, man.
Oh, you're fine then. Never mind. Anyway, I just keep looking at Twitter all the time for shit like that. Anyway, but I mean, Jesse, what do you think about this fight, man? I mean, 2 guys that were just throwing shit. They did not care. It reminded me of the end of Lamas Holloway, where Holloway just pointed at the ground, let's go, and Lamas like, all right, dude, let's go, and he just threw down. But it was the entire damn fight. Always fun to see those kind of fights. What do you think of the fight overall?
Well, besides the fact that she just like jacked Dave's whole point there. It was a great it was a great fight. I mean, it's kind of hard because you kind of look at it from a fan standpoint, and it's awesome, and you just like you're reverted back to those days where you're like drinking beer and yelling at people and want them to see somebody just get laid out, freaking just completely out cold, crumpled up, like Terry Edom or something, and then you kind of think about it, and then you're like, how many of these fights can these guys have? 2, maybe 1, maybe none, because you think about the damage that both of these guys incurred. Less so Bosse. At the end of the fight, he looked like he was ready to go for another 3 rounds. But I mean, O'Connell, man, his face was tore up, man. He took all the brunt of that punishment. I worry about a guy like that who's actually a pretty smart guy. Has his radio show and everything, has a book. I really don't want him to have that type of fight too often. It's exciting to watch it. And yeah, it was a really, really, really close fight. I mean, after that initial blowout. That 3rd round was pretty even, so I don't know, man. It was a good fight. Just kind of worrisome to watch them, lose brain cells for 3 rounds like that. So.
Yeah, during the fight, I kept thinking, oh man, this is like a Diego Sanchez fight. There's no fucks given, like old school, not old school, yeah, kind of old school Diego, like just going forward, clenching your teeth and throwing hands. It was fun to watch, but just like with Diego, you're kind of worried about permanent damage, so it's look, I'm glad they got a bonus because I believe that's what happened. They got fight of the night and they deserve it, but hopefully they chill the fuck out with all that crazy shit for at least a little while, get healthy, and that way next time they fight a little more technical. All right, co-main event of the evening, a fight that brought out the assassin in Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Dave, you're in ABQ, man. I mean, did anyone there? Did you expect Cowboy to do what he did by he fought? To me, it seemed like he fought with just bad intentions. Every time he landed on him, Cowboy's face was just like, yeah, bitch, take that and take this one too. And he was trying to break every part of Cote's body. What do you think of Cowboy or this Cowboy that showed up to this fight?
Yeah, this version of Cowboy, I think I tweeted out a tweet. It kind of reminded me of the old school of Cowboy, WEC days Cowboy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But as soon as he got the fight popping, as soon as he knew, or his game plan was to get the fight to the ground, pull an unexpected the move with the wrestling. I know he works, definitely a lot of time with Izzy Martinez, Greg Jackson, Wink. So I know Izzy gave him a lot of props on the wrestling and displaying that in perfect fashion on that fight and perfectly timed against Cote and the opponent and what he brought to the table. Then Donald, of course, like a lot of people said, he's a slow starter. He seemed to be a little bit slow, but then the wrestling kind of, got the fight going for him. He got his guys' momentum going, and then, like you said, everything he threw is with bad intention, and that's direct result of Brandon Six Gun Gibson. So I've seen that on display in the gym. I've seen a couple sessions with Donald. I knew he was going to display some kicks and throw some kicks out there as well, which he did, but it was a combination of Donald just being Donald, doing what he does, doing everything with bad intentions on the feet. He brought the wrestling. He's got the knees. He's got the elbows. He possesses many skills it's one of the best versions of Cowboy I've seen in quite a while. It's unfortunate that, because at 170, he's going to be getting some tough fights at 170, but at some point he may just be, back at 155. There's a chance that could be happening too as well. But definitely some big fights in the future for Cowboy. He's still looking to fight on UFC 200. Not sure if that's gonna happen, but it's Donald Cerrone, so we'll see what happens here in a short couple weeks. If not, now with the Holly Holm fight with, like you mentioned, the main event is now no longer there. So it's either going to be Holly Holm and Shevchenko as the main event, or they're going to throw Donald Cerrone in there against somebody. I believe that may be the plan. So that's kind of, that'll play out here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and Cowboy didn't get hurt. He seemed like he was 100% after the fight. So would not be surprised. I'm with you. I would not be surprised seeing him there. Or if someone drops out of 200, Cowboy is the crazy motherfucker. Okay, he will jump in there. Yeah. No fucks given. He will do it. But Jesse, what do you think of Patrick Cote on this one? I mean, he looked like he didn't show up.
Not really. I mean, I think I really didn't think that it was Cote that didn't show up. I think it's the right Cowboy showed up and really just destroyed Cote's confidence in there. I mean, you could see from right from the beginning. I mean, I didn't see that he started off slow. I thought Cowboy started off as fast as he normally would be in the second or third round. I mean, he already was going really, really well. And I think a lot of it had to do with that he walked to the octagon before he went through the motions. He was there super early. And I think Greg Jackson has talked about that. Cowboy, the problem, the knock on him has always been it's a mental. It hasn't been the talent or the abilities. It's always been mental, and it's him getting out of his own way to really perform up to his potential. And I think we finally got to see exactly where his potential is, and his potential is amazingly high. I mean, I think I wasn't sold on how good he could perform at 170. Still not all the way because, I mean, Cote, older guy, has been in a lot of wars. Blah, 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 all the excuses I may want to make for the performance out there. But I still saw Cote out there, the same Cote that we've seen before, that he's lit up some people. He just was overwhelmed by the attack, the variety of attacks that Cowboy, threw at him. And I think it just shocked him, and it just, got him out of his game plan, and Cowboy was able to implement exactly what he wanted to implement. So nothing taken away from Cowboy. I mean, this was a perfect Cowboy performance, and I'm excited to see Cowboy again at this weight, and hopefully we get the same Cowboy again. He would make a great run up to some of these contenders. I don't know about the top, 2, 3, 4 people at the top, but I think he'd make good fights for a lot of the people in this division.
And kind of on that point, but a little bit. If he went back to 155, Jody on YouTube just said Cowboy and Conor McGregor. What do you think about that fight, Jesse?
I think I'm past the Conor hype train at this point. We need Conor to go defend his 145 title. Until he's able to either say, I'm not going to defend that title, just relinquishes the title, or his plan is I'm going to come back, in one more fight. Until that happens, I don't want anybody else, calling him out or at a different weight class, because then that's just going to hold up that division longer and longer. And I think we really need to get that division sorted out before we can start making fun fights for Conor. Yeah, it would definitely be a fun fight. Just I want to see Conor defend that title finally, and put a stamp on that division and say, yeah, he's the best at 145, or hey, he got lucky in his run and he didn't run into Frankie before he got the championship, or he just was in all those heads so much that he was able to make him jump on his attack and able to knock him out with one punch. He just needs to go back there and really solidify his spot, and then we can see some fun fights.
Yeah, and Dave, what's the talk around Jackson's about that kind of fight being possible?
Which fight are you guys talking about?
The possible Cowboy Conor.
Yeah, Cowboy Conor. I mean, yeah, if that ever did pop, I mean, Cowboy's signing on the dotted line for that one immediately. If it does happen, yeah, 155 would be a good weight to make it happen. I mean, they could do it at 170. But agree with Jesse, stuff like that with people calling out Conor. outside of their division. I mean, and they know it's a big fight. It's a big money fight for them. They definitely want that fight. They want that limelight. But for right now, I 100% agree with Jesse, and I think you're in agreement with us too, Eddie.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Got to see that 145 belt defended. Conor McGregor against Frankie Edgar. I mean, in 2 weeks when Frankie takes on Jose, after that day, whoever's the champ, I'm gonna see that guy as the top guy at 145 until Conor fights him. And technically, Conor's got to go through Nate Diaz, and then we'll see what happens from there. But this hold up on this 145 division is just kind of, we're 6-7 months out. We could be 10, 11 months out before we actually see Conor back and possibly at a 145 matchup. But that's kind of determining if Frankie does hold a W over Jose, and which that's a huge fight for Frankie in 2 weeks.
But
yeah, for sure.
Isn't it crazy though? Like, if this was Jose Aldo being the champ, everybody would be pissed right now.
Yeah.
Oh, he pulled out of another fight. Oh, we have to wait a couple more months for him to fight. Blah blah blah. Nobody seems to care right now that Conor is holding up the division. And I think hardcore fans like us are getting to the point where we're like, okay, Conor, get this fight out of your system, and then go back and defend that title. We need to see that division because I mean, who else is in there? Max Holloway is knocking on the door. What are we gonna do with Max Holloway? We're just gonna keep giving him fights until it loses? No, like we need to see the rotation of those competitors.
Yeah, you got rising stars like you got rising guys like Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. There's some up and coming guys that would really like to see them up against the top competition, whether it's title fight or not. They're getting up there. They're getting close. Got Yair Rodriguez showcasing the main event for the UFC in Utah with the win over Caceres. That's huge. He's moving up the rankings real quickly. He's a young stud. I see him being a top competitor in the division, competing for a title one of these days. Brian Ortega in that same conversation as well.
Definitely. And Holloway's on an 8 or 9 fight win streak. Nobody has ever been on that kind of streak and not gotten a title shot. So, you know how to say thanks Obama? You guys say thanks Conor. That's what it is. Thanks Conor. So anyway, anyway, let's move on to the main event. Of course, an exciting main event if you're a Wonder Boy fan. A confusing one if you're a Rory fan or if you picked him to win. Obviously, Wonder Boy gets the decision. I think it's decision win, right? Yeah, decision win over Rory. Rory felt like he didn't show up. I'm not sure. It was a weird fight. Dave, from your point of view here, you watched the entire fight. Like, what were you left with at the end of the fight? Like, what was your first thought when the fight was over?
My first thought when the fight ended was I know Rory was a bit busted up at the end. I know we talked about it on the pre-fight show about fighters taking damage to their face and that being an issue in future fights, especially in the war that Rory was in with Robbie. So that definitely factored into this fight. And then, as we know, the aftermath in the press conference, Rory went about saying he had several, fractures to the nose in the training camp. He had some issues with it. He still wanted to get back into this fight. It's a big fight for him. But unfortunately, he suffered some more damage to it and admitted that he's got to take some time off, in which that's an issue, and also him being the last fight on his contract with the UFC. So, very end of it, I seen it. What I was left with is definitely Stephen Thompson is the number one guy at welterweight. He deserves the title shot. It's gonna be interesting what plays out with Robbie and Tyron Woodley here. See what happens, because Wonder Boy is gonna get that title shot. Absolutely cannot deny the guy. So at the end of the night, he's the guy. Going forward, we'll see if we have a possible Rory McDonald Bellator version. Possibly, there's a chance that may happen. But love to see Rory stay in the UFC. He's still a top guy. He didn't lose any value, I think, in this matchup. It's really just a tough guy. Wonder Boy's a stud. He's on the rise, so it's his time. And then also Rory's at a great camp. I think he's going to continue to do good things and pursue great fights, huge fights in the UFC or Bellator, whichever route he takes.
Definitely. And Jesse, first of all, what do you think of the fight? But Dave brings up a good point. This is Rory's last fight on his contract. He took a gamble. A lot of fighters have done it. A lot of fighters have taken a gamble, won their last fight on their contract, and lucked out, got paid. Rory didn't win. In fact, Rory was outclassed, in my opinion. So, two things, I guess. What do you think of the fight? And two, does Rory come back to the UFC?
Yeah, I think Rory's the type of guy that you don't want to lose to a Bellator or a Bellator, because it's not like World Series of Fighting is going to be able to put out that much money for him, in my opinion. So, I I agree with you in that he was outclassed, but not necessarily in the sense that like there wasn't anything he could do. I think, like Dave said, like we alluded to before, I think just him having so much damage to his nose, to his face, that played such a big factor that he was so gun shy, and that weird defensive posture that he had through that whole fight where he was, having his hand high to
Yeah.
kind of defend, his face and kind of just sticking one hand out, kind of trying to gauge his distance.
Hmm.
It kind of scared me a little bit because you don't gauge your distance that much
Right.
unless you just can't see what you're trying to throw at,
Very true.
and that to me signified a very very damaged Rory in that fight. Even though he didn't absorb a lot of damage up until the last couple rounds, it just didn't look right, and I think that he's masking a lot more damage than what he really let on. Even what he admitted to, I think there's still more to that. And unfortunately, it's an injury that you can't really do anything about it. Like we were talking before, I think a lot of fighters have said, even boxers have said, that it takes about a year and a half for that whole area to heal up properly
Right.
before you can start getting in these wars again, where it's not going to be, shattered and broken and all that. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see Rory for a while. But I think he's going to stay with the UFC. And I don't think he lost a lot of stock. I think he could still go out and beat a lot of the top 170ers, out there. I just think that he needs a definite, like almost like a GSP amount of time off of just kind of relaxing and just not really being in the trenches of training camp, and just kind of living life for a little bit and just kind of getting rejuvenated. But Wonder Boy, amazing performance. I think a lot of questions were answered. I mean, he was so smart. He kept adjusting his game plan to whatever Rory was trying to do. And what surprised me the most is that he scouted the fact that Rory would roll onto his leg,
Right.
and try to do some sort of a leg lock because he knew that Rory was really good with leg locks. I mean, that's some high level scouting right there. That it didn't even surprise him. Something that surprised everybody else when
Yeah.
he rolled for what was it, the Ichimari roll or something like that.
Right. Right.
Um,
I
so
remember. I
I
don't
mean,
remember the name of it, but yeah.
Imanari roll, I think it is.
Yeah. 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 There you go.
Anyway,
That's the name.
Ichimari, is that like a
Um,
sushi
um,
roll or something? Anyway.
Ichimari sounds like a fighter's last name from like One FC or something.
If you want to catch one of those roles, just watch Tony Ferguson and Edson Barboza. You'll see a showcase of
Ooh,
that.
hell
Yeah.
yeah.
But see, and that's the thing. I mean, who is it? Ryan Hall or something like that. He's the guy that kind of was training with Rory, and kind of showed him that style of jiu-jitsu attack. So I mean, just again, the level of knowledge that Wonder Boy is showing of being so well-rounded and so knowledgeable about his opponents is amazing. And I think the only person that can really stake claim ahead of Wonder Boy, in my opinion, is Maya. Just because Maya has been on such a tear, he's been pretty much, just putting people, making them look foolish. So I think Maya is another guy that could potentially, if he gets enough of a push, could get in there. But
Hmm.
I think definitely more people are going to be inclined to watch Wonder Boy get in there and fight for that title, and because I think they're assuming that it's going to be just a slobber knocker, barn burner of a fight. So
Definitely. Definitely. Now, we talked about Rory, obviously, and so David, Wonder Boy gets a title shot. Who is it against? Because we got Robbie Lawler against Tyron Woodley. Oh, I don't know. How do I phrase this? Who does he have a better shot at beating? Tyron Woodley or Robbie Lawler?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I know Robbie Lawler, Tyron are split on the camps right now. I think Woodley's up at he's working up north, right? He's not down at AT&T, right? He's at Rufus Sport.
Yeah.
So he's training that there because they're teammates. So it's going to be a crazy fight. I have a feeling that fight's going to be somewhere. Somebody's going to get finished. That's the way I see that one playing out. I see it being a real fight that really turns, in the direction of Robbie Lawler. I favor Robbie Lawler in it just because he's taken some time off. He had the war with Condit. Robbie just kind of comes back. I mean, he's right after wars, he's right back to it. Like, kind of reminds me of like Diego Sanchez after wars. He just kind of, he can fight, a couple weeks later, cut up, beat up, having a 3, 4, 5 round war. He's that type of fighter. So I think Robbie will get the job done against Tyron Woodley. I see Wonderboy against him being a fantastic fight. I mean, that's a fight that's going to take place maybe if the timing is good, on the New York card, if it does work out that way. Like you mentioned, Damian Maia, Jesse, he's kind of the steel trap. I kind of refer to him as that at the 170 division, because him against any of those guys at the top, he's right there. He can win. He knows how to win in that division. He's deadly. I'd love to see him fight Wonderboy. I'd love to see him fight Tyron. I'd love to see him fight Robbie. But what it comes down to is we have a matchup with Robbie and Tyron. It's going to be a war. I see that being a real type of war. So depending on the outcome, Wonderboy may sit for a little bit, but I think they may shoot for New York for the next welterweight title defense afterwards, and then we'll see what plays out with Nick Diaz getting added back to the mix. There's a couple guys coming back in the mix here at 170, and 170 is super competitive. DSP talks. We shall see what happens post UFC 200. A lot of shit's gonna probably change after that night.
Definitely. All right, let's move on here from this UFC Ottawa card and talk about what was an unusual. Okay, EFN 50. I've got what the EFN stands for. It's like Fight Night, something Fight Night. But EFN 50. First of all, to me, the best part of the entire thing was the announcer. Okay, this Russian cat speaks English, but it was just amazing because it was like, it's nearly what was it? I don't know, but I can't remember. But everything he said was hilarious. No matter what he said, it was funny as shit, right? And it was great. So then we get Fedor Maldonado, and the fight is confusing as hell to me, because Fedor went out there looking like Fedor, trying to just knock the shit out of Maldonado. Fabio didn't go down. Okay, he didn't get knocked out, and then he drops Fedor multiple times. And then Fedor gets a decision win. Of course, in Russia, it's kind of expected. But, still, super weird fight. It tripped me out. And it made me not want to see Fedor in the UFC ever. Because if that's the Fedor we're going to get, the top half of the UFC heavyweights will put him out, I think. With like one shot. Guys, let's kick it off here with Jesse. Did you get to see the fight? And two, what do you think of Fedor now?
Yeah, I saw the fight. Honestly, send your hate to my Twitter account because I don't look at it often enough. But I've never been impressed ever with Fedor. I've never thought he's the greatest. I just always thought that he was fighting people that just couldn't hack it in the division, or just weren't at the right point in their careers to be a top contender. I always thought he was fighting, not tomato cans, but just above tomato cans, basically. And when he was fighting like good guys, in my opinion, he was getting lucky, like that Andrei Arlovsky fight, the famous fight where Arlovsky jumped up to try to do like some kind of like jumping attack, and then he got KO'd. Oh, yeah. Up until that point, Arlovsky was kicking his ass from post to post. I've never been impressed with Fedor. So to see this, it just solidified to me that he just was fighting in a different era, a different type of fighter. He wasn't fighting UFC caliber fighters, in my opinion. And we see that. A 205 guy fighting a heavyweight guy still gave him problems, knocked him out twice, in my opinion. I think in that first round, that was an easy 10-7 for me, I think. He almost killed Fedor in that fight, basically. And if you don't give him a 10-7, a 10-8 at the minimum, and I think that fight becomes a draw. I think Fedor just basically, I think somebody went into Maldonado's ear and said, "Hey, lay off or we're going to kill you." And then he was like, "Oh, okay." Who knows? Who knows what happened? I believe somebody also mentioned that there's a video of them putting something up to Fedor's nose in between that first and second round, like to try and wake him up and get him back in there. Yeah. So I mean, it's Russia, and Fedor's fighting. They'll probably give him a blood transfusion in between rounds to get him back out there to fight. So I mean, shoot him up with steroids right before he starts the round. So I mean, it was expected that he was going to win one way or another, but it just solidified for me that he's just past his prime and was never that good. I mean, all he does is an exciting brawl style of fight, And if someone can, withstand that punishment, like Maldonado, and is actually a decent level fighter, they're just going to put him, they're going to put him in bad positions, and that's what Maldonado did. So, I don't want to see him fight in the UFC. Please don't. I will cry.
Dave, did you get to catch the fight, man? Well, first of all, I'm gonna say it again. The announcement was the best part. Okay, we'll talk about this in a second. But if the UFC really did sell, or really does sell, which all reports indicate it did, please hire this motherfucker. All right, hire this guy and put him on every FS1 card because he's amazing. He's so awful. It's hilarious. I love it. I love it. Seriously, put him on there for sure. But Dave, what do you think of the fight? And what do you think of Fedor now? Like Fabio showed up, and it almost looked like Fabio was holding back. There was times where actually the announcer himself. There was a time where Fedor was rocked. He was hurt. Fabio didn't attack, and this guy goes, "What the hell is going on in the octagon?" I'm like, "What the fuck?" Everybody was thinking that, and I swear to God, I went on Twitter, and that "what the hell is going on in the octagon" quote was tweeted a million times easily. Everybody loved it. It was the best shit ever. But again, Fabio seemed like he held back. Fedor's like, "I'm not gonna retire. I still feel like I want to fight, or I can fight." Dana White saying Fedor's still a draw. All signs are pointing to a UFC, fight or contract. But does Fedor have enough to fight against the heavyweights in the UFC?
Yeah, I don't think he has what it takes. Is there a fight that's going to be kind of tailor-made for both guys? If they do showcase Fedor in the UFC, it's a guy who's previously fought and lost to, and it's going to be the guy you don't want to hear or you probably don't want to see fight again, and his name is Bigfoot Silva.
Yep.
So that's what I was going to say. I've mentioned that before. That's the fight that I think they do offer Fedor. If they do, I know there's a couple guys. There's Mir. I mean, Amir's on a suspension. There's a few other interesting guys that would be a big draw for them. It's really just disappointing. Like, I watched the fight a couple times. It's really strange. I know Jesse mentioned the fact that they use smelling salts. So there's video about that happening between the first and second round. I did catch that, but my God, was the guy, they were going to let him die in the octagon basically from the beating that he took. So I heard I think it was a Chael Sonnen podcast, or it was Chael that mentioned it. He's like the referee involved in the match. Whoever was cashing his check at the end of the night, if he's wearing an earpiece, he said, Fedor's winning this fight. Whatever the hell you got to do, keep the fight going, and it ends up Fedor getting a decision, which I totally disagree with. He totally got his ass handed to him in there. But I kind of revert back to I was thinking about Fabio Maldonado when he was fighting Rampage Jackson. Rampage threw everything he had at Fabio Maldonado. He even stated in the post interview that he's like, "Yeah, I threw everything but the kitchen sink at this guy. I trained him to knock him out. He's still there, and then he's tough as shit." I mean, I picked Fedor to wipe the octagon around with him, but it was kind of the complete opposite. I don't want to see him in the UFC. Like I mentioned, the Bigfoot bout may be a fight for him. A couple other guys may come to the bout as possible matchups for him, but absolutely do not want to see Fedor in the UFC anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't want to see him get his ass whooped. I really don't. And I mean, the Bigfoot Silva, I understand that. But if they did like Verdum versus Fedor, like that would be a big thing right there for them, because it'd be a rematch and whatnot. But Verdum destroys him. I mean, Verdum doesn't even submit him. Verdum knocks him the fuck out, clean. You know what I mean? So it's a rough thing. I don't want to see Fedor in there either. Huh?
Super easy. Verdum
of course
kills
you do.
him. Anyway.
Mr. King's MMA.
No, you know what? I just thought about this. This is the fight they need to make. If they really want to make a lot of money signing Fedor, just put him in with Brock.
Ooh.
I mean, you're just going for a money grab. Just put him in there with Brock. Two guys that really don't need to be in the octagon at this point. You got a wrestler who has been away from the sport for several years that is probably going to get murdered by Mark Hunt. And you got a guy who's way past his prime. Might as well just put that fight together and just cash in. Yeah,
I mean, look, you're right. If it's a money grab, make that fight. Or if you want to get a little crazy with it, put Daniel Cormier in there after he loses to John Jones and do the black Fedor, white Fedor thing and get a little racist with it. Why not? I mean, fuck it, we're doing stupid shit anyway. Let's just let's go all the way. I figure if you're gonna do something dumb, go all the way with it. Okay, own your shit. Anyway. Hinted at it a second ago. Let's get right into it. Now, we've been talking about this for a while. Like, this has not been a surprise for anybody. That's why nobody blew up about it. Nobody was surprised. Nobody freaked out. We've been expecting this for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years, maybe even longer. I've been talking about it with friends forever. The UFC rumored almost completely confirmed by everybody but the UFC that it's been sold to a group, I think, led by Robert Kraft, who's the owner of the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. It's a weird thing. First of all, completely understand. Okay, you're the Fertittas, you buy the UFC for millions, and you get out at $4.2 billion. For sure, make that deal. You know what I mean? I would make that deal too.
You mean $2 million? That's all they spend on it. $2 million.
They spent nothing. Drop in the bucket compared to $4.2 billion. Dana White is coming out like a bandit in this one too. The rumor is like $300+ million. Like, yo, what the? You know what I mean? Like, everyone's great. That's the move to make. You're a businessman. It makes sense. Now, of course, Dana White's denying it. The Fertittas are denying it because they want to be the ones to put out that thing. But everyone's basically confirmed it from sources, and I'm assuming it's sources with that ownership group that's going to buy it. So starting out here with Dave here, what do you think the sale of the UFC is it good or bad? And I don't know. Are you excited about it, or does it make you nervous that somebody else is taking over?
Yeah, I think it's something to be excited about. Some people are going to really absolutely hate it. I think the reason behind it has to do with Dana White. It has to do with with fighter pay. It has to do with certain figures involved in the UFC. There could be a lot of change that could take place quickly. It could be something where they're banking on they're seeing Conor McGregor lose once. They're seeing a couple guys, some of their big stars. They're kind of rolling the dice with these big fights, so they're kind of going out with a bang. I know you mentioned, like you said, the Brock Lesnar and Fedor. I mean, who knows how much longer they're going to push it and actually just announce, that hey, it's sold, it's done, it's a done deal. I know I've heard that recent article where it's talking about Fertitta being the new, I think, is chairman of the Red Rock Casino, taking on a new position in Las Vegas. So that's another thing that's kind of a little bit stamp of approval on this being ultimately, a true story and that it's actual fact, in which it's not yet been announced by the UFC. But I've talked about it a bit on the radio show for ESPN, and I mentioned that it's going to take place somewhere, no later than I think the UFC 200, possibly as soon as a couple weeks from now, and as late as possibly the McGregor-Diaz fight, because I think a lot to do is with McGregor, with Diaz, possibly Ronda factoring into her return. A lot of their big stars. They're riding a lot of their big stars right now, and I know that UFC 200, they're going to try to outdo UFC 199. They're trying to do this, make this show one of the best shows. It's really, the card is stacked complete. I mean, I know the Brunson fight, Greg Gegard fell out from it. Still without that fight, the card intact is a magnificent card. Two very important title fights are on there. The third should be ultimately, for the 145 official title. But then again, Frankie and Aldo is still an interesting fight, moving that division forward. So yeah, UFC's got a big week from the week of the 7th through the 13th with 4 cards. So from now, 2 weeks from now, we definitely have our work cut out for us and breaking down all these cards and figuring out the situations with these divisions going forward. The UFC sale, I think, takes place in that time period. I think it's going to actually come real soon and not as late as like the Conor McGregor Diaz rematch. I think something definitely happens and gets fully announced before then, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I've heard the same thing you did. It's going to happen. The consensus is going to happen at UFC 200. The announcement will come at UFC 200, which would be the time to do it. Real quick, couple comments here before we get to Jesse. Mike Jarve says the UFC's trolling everyone. Maybe. And then Andy says all the big fights lately are just a shop window for the sale, and proving your point right there, Dave, about that. Now, Jesse, this sale, first of all, rumor is that Dana White's going to stay on at least for a while. Of course, you don't want to let go of all management because you need to be able to learn how to manage this thing before you just take over. You can't just jump in and manage the whole thing with no experience. So you're going to need Dana White to stay in there for a while. Now, Jesse, let's take fighter pay into consideration. Let's take the way matchups are made into consideration. By the way, Joe Silva, Sean Shelby, all those guys rumored to stay. No word on Joe Rogan yet. He said, he said it himself. If it gets sold, he's out. So his contract ends next month. So, or in August, I think, something like that.
August, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, his contract ends in August. He might be gone. So again, hire the EFN guy, motherfuckers. That guy's great. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be a few changes here. Jesse, do you think it's going to be noticeable, and more importantly, do you think the fighter pay is going to be the same, or you think they got to do something to make it more? I mean, look, because if you're an NFL guy like Robert Kraft is, and you know how NFL players get paid, the risk they take on the field you can make the argument the fighters take the exact same risks, in training and the fights and all that. You think fighter pay will improve with the new ownership group?
No, I think as a lot of people like to say, if it ain't broke, you don't gotta fix it. You know, I think the example that the Fertittas and Dana White has kind of put forth, as in, look, we can get these fighters to fight for this amount of money. You know, like the base pay is 10 grand. When you hear somebody gets less than 10 and 10, you're like, oh my God, they're getting raped. 10, 20 grand to win a fight is not a lot either way. After fight camp, after, expenses of bringing your coaches, all that stuff, that's nothing. And if you only fight twice in a year, you're making maybe 40 grand. Like, that's without even counting, taxes and all that. So you're not making any money. That's not a living wage. So I think I just don't think that a businessman would come in and go, okay, so this is the bar that you set. Okay, we're gonna raise it just because we're nice. No, they're gonna be like, oh, great, we don't have to do anything, But what I think the problem is right now is that when one reporter comes out and says, hey, this is what's going on, and then you send your lawyers to send him a letter, okay? Jeremy Botter from Flow Combat Sports. He got a letter saying that, hey, check your sources and kind of shut up about this, basically, To me, it's more of a hey, don't talk about this because, we don't want this to get out yet. And I think it's coming down the pipeline. I think Jeremy Botter is a pretty respectable journalist. I think he's not out to get the story. He's not out to be about himself. He's not crying on any show that he got his credential pulled. I'm not talking. That's just a general person. I'm not talking about anybody. He doesn't have an hour-long show that's 5 hours long or whatever. Anyway, he's just a reporter. He's a guy that's looking for the story and trying to do the best that he can to report what's out there. And I think he does a great job. And I think he found it. I think he found exactly what's out there. And like you said, the craft group or whatever, that whole conglomerate that's supposedly buying it. I think the big thing is that the company, what is it, like WME or something like that?
Yeah, it's WME, and then I think it's a Chinese group somewhere in there, and then Robert Kraft. It's basically everyone with billions of dollars. Just everyone.
It's kind of like the people that bought, what was it, the Dodgers, right? Or like where it was just a bunch of different people.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it was kind of like that.
Yeah. So I mean, but WME represents Dana White. So I think that's why Dana White is going to stay on. I think Dana White, may have done the same thing what he did with the Fertittas, where he got in their ear and was like, hey guys, pay this much, they'll get out, you pay me a good salary, I'll stay on, everything will be kosher, you guys will be making money. And he probably gave up his hand to show them that they should probably make this move. That's what makes it fishy to me. But other than that, because remember, Dana White had always said, once they cash out, I cash out, we're all gone. And now it's like, well, now it's the rumor that he's going to stay, and this group is the one that, represents him, all this stuff. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of moving parts here, but I think fighter pay is not going to get any better. And I think we're not going to notice anything different. I don't think anything is going to change. I think we're just going to see Dana White maybe a little bit more subdued. But that's about it.
Okay. Yeah, and honestly, with this whole thing, a lot of people were asking me on Twitter, like, does this mean Reebok's out? Look, unless there's a clause in that contract that says that that you can, cut the Reebok contract in, case of a sale, I highly doubt it. So don't expect any miracles here to happen to get rid of Reebok. Yeah, I'm kind of with Jesse now that he explains it that way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't see it happening either. So yeah. All right. What else do we want to talk about? I'm like completely just blanked out listening to that explanation. Oh, right. This weekend. So we got Bellator tomorrow night. But it is the Dynamite show, if I'm not mistaken. I think we were talking about it before. It's Bellator and Glory, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. The Bellator has the Michael Chandler fight. Is that correct?
Yeah, Chandler and Tricky Pitbull for the 155 bout, and then main event Rampage and Ishii. And then on the kickboxing side, I got Schilling against Cotto rematch, and Kerry Melendez is taking on a newcomer as well on the kickboxing side.
Definitely. And now, what do you think of this whole? Start here with Dave. Now, we've already had a Dynamite show before. To me, it started off like it was nice to reminisce and hear the Pride lady screaming all the time. After the first like 3 or 4 fights, it was just crappy to me. I didn't really like it. What do you think about this whole thing where you're mixing Glory kickboxing and Bellator? They're gonna have Bellator kickboxing soon too, if not already for this fight. That's not what they're calling it. But they have these mixes of MMA and kickboxing. What do you think of that model of that project they have?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool that they're experimenting with that. I mean, there's some guys that are MMA guys, and then there's high-level kickboxing involved with that. Heard Joe Schilling talk a little bit about. He thinks that he'll see a lot of other MMA fighters get involved with the kickboxing side on the Bellator, under the Bellator banner. They don't always put these shows on as consistent, but I think they'll be more consistent in that. They'll put a few of them out there. They'll build up a few stars in the process. Schilling's a guy that he's known for training with the Diaz brothers. The Scrap Pack, that's what he's known, and he's a known kickboxer. He's fought Cotto before, so this is a rematch. So I think this time around, he's one of the guys they're trying to showcase on this card, as well as Gilbert Melendez's wife, Carrie Ann Melendez, like I mentioned. So pretty cool deal that they're doing. I don't agree with the Rampage being as a main event, but I think the Chandler and Patricky is a better main event. But then again, Rampage is a big draw. He's a big name, so I think against Ishii, yeah, he's a name that they always going to put him in their big events on the main stage. So I'm not going to argue that.
And also on these, and because Andy, reminded me, and look, I'm gonna butcher the hell out of the names because I'm awful at pronouncing names, as Jesse will tell you immediately. They also have Glory 31. I believe that's gonna be on Fight Pass, and you got Sanchai and Sitachi. I want to say I'm saying it right, Sitachi. Andy, totally correct me if I'm wrong. But 2 legends of Muay Thai are gonna fight. I mean, and they're getting no press. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of either one of those guys, but YouTube both of them tonight, because damn, all right, they would tear up so many of the American kickboxers on here. It wouldn't even be funny. But real quick, Jesse, what do you think about this again? The whole mix-up thing of the mix of MMA and kickboxing on the same card. I mean, did you like Dynamite 1?
It was a little confusing, and actually, it actually got a little boring because I think when you're shown what MMA can do, and then you show what kickboxing is, even at a high level, kickboxing lacks the whole ground and pound and the takedowns and all those different threats, And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not even a Glory event, right? Because Glory is not on Spike anymore. They're out of Spike, so I think this is just Bellator. Like their Bellator.
Okay, so it's Bellator kickboxing then. Okay.
Right.
Sorry,
so I mean, no, and that's the worst thing about it. You're not even getting the best kickboxers out there. I mean, you've got Nikki Holskin that's at Glory. You've got Raymond Daniels. You've got a lot of great kickboxers that, unfortunately for a guy like for guys like us, that really appreciate the striking art and on all that, we're robbed of getting to see those guys on television. I was happy to be able to see Nikki Holskin run through that tournament and win his title. It was amazing. But we don't get to see that anymore. And that fight with Raymond Daniels was awesome. We don't get to see that anymore. Now we get kind of like a second grade kickboxing event where, I mean, it's not really the top of the top. So, I mean, I just think that it's kind of it's just a cluster. It's just a cluster of like an event. Why have 2 rings at the same time? You're not getting the best experience, in my opinion, and I think this is just kind of disappointing. Some of the talent at least they can showcase, but I mean, like I was saying before, Joe Schilling's not even on that Bellator Dynamite card. He's on the kickboxing event after Dynamite, and remember, this is a pre-recorded live event, so. I get it at like 10 o'clock at night, I think. So that means I have to stay up till like 1 or 2 in the morning to watch the kickboxing. Screw that. I'll just go on. Yeah, it's so stupid. It's such a stupid setup. They need to really fix that before I can really start getting on board with their kickboxing and Dynamite events.
Yeah,
Not to
and this,
forget Mitrione on the card
yeah,
too as well.
yeah.
Just to throw that, I was gonna say Mitrione's making his debut Bellator, so I think he's fighting a guy who's I don't know if the guy's fought Fedor before. I believe he has the guy he's taking on.
I'm looking at it right now. He
Yeah,
has.
I think he has a couple high-profile fights, but I mean, he's not really
I don't see any.
anybody to not really anybody to sneeze at. I mean, I don't think he's got that UFC caliber or high level fighting pedigree. I mean, he's fought some guys that are known, just not anybody that you're like, oh wow, he fought that guy.
I think it's Ishii I'm thinking of because Ishii's fought Fedor twice, I believe.
Yeah, it is Ishii because this guy hasn't fought anybody that you would be like,
And if you've
Yeah,
seen him at the
nobody.
weigh-ins, the guy's a monster too. He's pretty damn big, and up
Yep.
against Mitrione, Mitrione's usually he looked at the weigh-ins he looked exactly like he did in the UFC. So
Yeah.
Mitrione's gonna bring it. One of these guys getting knocked out, in my opinion.
Yeah, and then you could always say that with all of the heavyweights. So all right, so Dynamite's gonna be Bellator kickboxing and Bellator now. Okay, and you were talking about it right now. Matt Mitrione on the card, Michael Chandler on the card. Outside of that, what is? But that's what Jesse said was one thing that really bothers me. The half of Bellator cards are in the West, right? They're in like San Jose, California, where you live in California. It should be live for you, right? It should be live for me. It's not. The West side, and I know Andy's gonna be like, "Fuck you, we don't get it for another 8 days." I get it, totally get it. But the fact that it's not live for everybody is bullshit. You can't. How are you gonna, try to build your brand and try to build a promotion by playing fights 4 hours after, 4 hours later, 4 hours after the fight started or the event started in the West? It's bullshit. You know what I mean? So that's why I always, people always asking me, "Did you watch Bellator?" And I go, "Not yet." They're like, "Why?" I'm like, "I'm not staying up to watch it, and I already heard who won, so I'm gonna wait until the little tiny videos and the gifs and all that shit come out, and I'll watch it on there. I'm not gonna sit through the fight anymore because I know who won. I don't care anymore, But so that's the one thing. And then Glory 31 is actually on Fight Pass, and I actually enjoy that. I love the fact that it's on Fight Pass because I can literally pull it up wherever I'm at, and it's great. And then it's Satechi, yeah, Satechi. Fuck, I apologize for fucking it up. But Satechi's on there. Sunshine is on there as well.
Yeah.
Are they both on the same card? Or am I mixing that up?
It's Senshai and somebody else, but Ishii's the one that's fighting Rampage, right?
Right. But I'm talking about the Glory, the Bypass Glory card. I think Sunshine's on the Glory card, on the Fight Pass card. Yeah, Sunshine's on there.
Yeah.
By the way, whoever writes for Bloody Elbow, his name isn't Sunshine and then Sunshine Muay Thai Gym. That's like his Twitter handle. Okay, dude? Like, that's not his fucking name. Unless you could actually do that and change your name to that. It's not his name.
I think that's what they do over there in Thailand, isn't it?
Oh,
like
really?
where you train under a certain gym and like basically they own you. Like you represent us, so now you're named, Bangkok Ani whatever Muay Thai gym or whatever. It's like crazy over there, man. Like they own you.
Huh.
It's almost as bad as like Fedor and his people that do his contract for him. They kind of own him.
Well, tomorrow I'm hopefully talking to the young Mr. Reed, and he knows all about that shit. So I'll be asking him a bunch of questions about it because I don't know a whole lot about the how Thailand works on that. And he's a huge Muay Thai fan, so I will tweet out exactly when that's gonna go down for tomorrow. And believe me, you do not want to miss this kid. He knows his shit for sure as far as MMA goes, and definitely when it comes to Muay Thai. All right, a couple of things here before we go. There was a fight that they just made not too long ago. Paige Van Zandt's coming back, and she's going to fight Beck Rawlings. Jesse, do you care?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Beck Rawlings sucks, so, I mean, watching her get beat up by Paige Van Zandt coming back rejuvenated, yeah, good fight.
Okay. And real quick, Andrew Reed just cleared it up for me. That is his name. Their surname is the gym name, so you're right on that one, Jesse. And Jesse, Dave, what do you think about that? Paige Van Zandt, Beck Rawlings. Paige Van Zandt coming off getting her ass handed to her, and Beck Rawlings irrelevant at best, in my opinion. What do you think about that fight, that matchup? Is it just, get Paige Van Zandt someone to get her name, hyped up again, or is this a legit fight?
somebody to get Paige Van Zandt, get a W back in there, and it's like she took some time off. I would have loved to see her fight Calderwood. I think that bout was the one booked back in December. I would have loved to have seen that one. But she took the time off. She fought or did the Dancing with the Stars, made a bunch of money, probably more money than she's ever made in the octagon. But she's got a couple wins in the UFC, so she wants to keep that record going, possibly make a run near the top. But there's some tough girls at the top of that division. This fight is kind of tailor-made for her. It's a good bout. I'll watch, and I think Paige wins. I think that Beck Rawlings is pretty unknown, but in that division, kind of hard to cut any of those ladies in that division as well. It's so thin. But then again, Paige did deny, I think, a movie role as well.
Yeah.
So it seems like she's real motivated to get back in there. She's been out. She made some money. I see her coming back in there and being impressive against Rowdy Beck. So.
Yeah, she took a page out of the Holly Holm book. Holly Holm recently turned down a movie role as well. Yeah, you know that. And look, that's the way you do it. Ronda went after the money. Hey, I get it, but it cost you. It cost you a pretty penny there. So Holly Holm and Paige Van Zandt putting the example of if you're gonna be a fighter, be a fighter. That's kind of a way to get there. And then Dave, CM Punk thinks he's gonna fight at 203. How many weeks out will he pull out of the fight?
Yeah, it's amazing now. There's just so much stuff going on. With the UFC sold, a lot of great fights, a lot of great cards, and then here we have, the Mickey Gall, CM Punk kind of just pop back in the mix. So I've heard that this fight's been booked 19 times before. So if it does happen, I more than likely will watch and see what plays out. I just see CM Punk just getting in there and getting, choked out or some sort in the first round. I don't see him being competitive at all. I don't care how long he's been dedicating himself to training with actual MMA fighters. I know Mickey Gall is an actual fighter, so against CM Punk, he's been dodging this fight and dodging his debut for so long. I mean, there's champions and there's guys that don't even have, I think, fight kits, and they have, CM Punk fight kits. Never competed in the octagon, so it's like, come on now, let's get this guy either a fight. Let's get him in there. Let's see it. Let's see him lose. Let's see him win. Let's just see him in there. But like you said, a couple weeks out, he more than likely will pull out. But if it does happen, hey, it's going to be a Fight Pass prelims type deal, trying to showcase the prelims, or maybe on just a fight night card. But yeah, I don't know what percentage you want to give this fight on actually happening, but I'll give it a 0% chance of happening right now. So that's what I'm.
That's what I'm thinking too.
At the best in the world.
Okay, so how far out do you think he pulls out of the fight?
I say after he weighs in and he misses weight, and then he stands in front of Mickey Gall and notices how intense that dude is and how he's gonna beat his ass, and he's gonna be like, I passed out in the toilet or something after making weight or something. So I give him up until the night before the fight.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a week before.
I'll give him more time than you guys are giving it to him. I know there's that Chicago card with Holly fighting Shevchenko. I think he'll be there. They're gonna try to get something stirred up with that bout around that time. I mean, it's gonna be that fight will probably be booked, or if it's officially booked, I don't know if it is right now or if it isn't. But I'll give him to that Chicago card, and maybe a couple of days following from there, he'll fall out from the card. That's just my opinion. 0% chance that it happens.
Yeah, I don't think, dude. There's no way anybody even cares to I don't care to see it happen. But I'm with Dave on this one. I think Gall goes in there and just massacres this dude. I really don't. I can see him Punk 0 shot to win anything.
Give Gall the fight. I mean, give him the fight. Gall wants to get in there and fight. I mean, I don't know why they're set out on this fight with CM Punk. It's like match him up with somebody else. I mean, if he has to go through Punk, get the fight happen, make it happen, get him in there. Get a win.
The problem is if they give Mickey Gall another fight, then he's going to be his record's going to be way too big for any commission to really sanction that fight. Because you're getting a guy that's 0-0, never fought, against a guy that has, I think, 2 fights now, 2 professional fights. Yeah. So you give him another one, that puts him at 3-0 or maybe 2-1, and then most commissions are going to be like, no, that's not happening, dude. This guy has way too much experience versus the guy that's just coming off the street, basically.
Just on the UFC level, I don't agree with this matchup. I don't agree with anything with CM Punk being involved in any type of fight in the octagon. I've never been in agreement with it. But then again, he is, been training for the time he has, so he's been wanting to get in there. But we'll see if it does actually happen.
Okay, like a serious question though. Why is most people have like this you could almost say like this hatred for CM Punk? Because if he had come in kind of like Brock Lesnar saying that he's the best, he's gonna rip everybody apart, I would understand the animosity that people have towards him. But honestly, this dude, all he wants to do is just get in there and try it. He just wants to be able to say that he tried the experience, right?
I think that's
and
why.
he got offered money for it. I mean, if somebody offered you a butt ton of money to go fight in the UFC, I mean, I think all of us would be hard pressed to say, nah, man, I don't want to put shame on the UFC's name. All of us would be like, all right, yeah, no problem, yeah, give me that contract, right?
Yeah,
and here's the thing.
On that point, I get it. The money, look, I'm all for it. Nate Diaz himself said it. He's like, look, man, if you're gonna get paid to do it, fuck it, do it. You know what I mean? But I think it's because Brock Lesnar came in with pedigree. He was national champion wrestler, if I'm not mistaken. He was All-American. He's a monster wrestler. CM Punk was a fake wrestler, did some Kempo or whatever the hell you call it, and he once in a while trained with Hannah Gracie. That's what he had to his name. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, there's young guys and girls getting putting in the hard work, taking these amateur fights and shit, lower the near no name promotions they fight in the middle of nowhere to try and get up there. To me, that's what it is. I don't know, Dave. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just there's so many guys out there. There's so many women out there grinding, fighting these cards, like you said, on the regional scene and small cities, small casinos. Earning their keep and making their way up the rankings. So that's where a lot of people, I think, that don't agree with Punk just jumping right in to compete with not necessarily a top competition. I mean, he's fighting Mickey Gall, a guy who's only got a couple of professional bouts, but he's a real fighter, so he's actually looking to make a name for himself. But making a name through CM Punk, I don't know if that's the right route they want to go. Actually, I think the reason they're trying to book this fight is they do believe CM Punk can beat Mickey Gall, which I absolutely don't agree. But it's something to that nature, I believe. But that's why, like you said, Jesse, if he gets another bout under his record, another win, he seems a little bit, just too far ahead, even with one more win. So, yeah, I think it just rubs people the wrong way that there's just so many fighters out there earning their keep, earning their stripes, on these lower organizations and no-name organizations, like you said. So that's the way to do it. That's where a lot of these stars are produced, and not necessarily through the Ultimate Fighter, not necessarily because you're affiliated with a certain gym. It's like they all go through a certain route, and they face tough competition. They win. Sometimes they lose. Sometimes they win them all. Sometimes you got guys like recently with Cody Garbrandt, laying waste to Almeida. He was talking shit, saying he fought nothing but cab drivers, and look at what he ends up putting him away right away. So it's interesting, though. I just, like I said, I don't agree with the whole CM Punk showcasing just immediately on the UFC stage, just with whatever name value he had and a fake pro wrestling background. I mean, Brock's a whole different animal, a whole different story. CM Punk, I've never been in agreement with anything they've tried to, come to bring about, with the fight kit, with this big fight being booked multiple times and canceled. So just a little sick of it, and I actually just want to see it happen. I mean, I won't see it, so I won't believe it until I see them walk into the cage, and I highly, highly doubt we'll ever see that.
Yeah, I guess I understand that, but also, like, you got to think, at least Mickey Gall's getting an opportunity at the big show because of it. I mean, and he actually gave two people an opportunity to have contracts in the UFC. Mike Jackson, I think was his name, that Mickey Gall fought.
Yeah, he's a writer, actually.
That's two guys that got an opportunity in the UFC. I mean, and I don't see it as bad as most people do. Now, if he was out there, talking crap about how he's gonna lay waste and he's gonna make a run at the title, like, I would totally be on your guys' side. But I think that he has such a respect for the sport, and the fact that he's actually went to a real legit training camp and has been putting in work and has, kind of been putting in the time that he can, I mean, he doesn't have the opportunity of being young and having, being able to string together, 3, 4, 5 amateur fights and turning pro and all that, So I think getting more eyes on the sport is as important as getting the right people into the sport. And I think him bringing more eyes and just kind of showcasing that, that these wrestlers are athletes that can actually translate something to the octagon. I think it's worth at least giving them a shot before we crap on them. Because trust me, I agree with you guys. I don't think he could spend the next 5 years training, and I don't think he'll be on any level being in the UFC. I think he's going to get laid to waste pretty quickly. But those eyes that are coming over, and that those people that are like, look up to him and go, wow, look, he did it. He tried it. We might be able to get more people turned on to our sport and attempt to do our sport instead of going to basketball, football, wrestling, or whatever. So I think all in all, it could be a good thing.
Yeah, it could be definitely to get the attention from a whole other audience the way Brock did it, but it's just I don't know. It still bugs me that he gets handed an opportunity that everyone else has had to earn. It's weird. So anyway,
on the flip side though, what if CM Punk were to go in there and just knock the shit out of Mickey Gall? Then what are people going to say though? On the flip side of the coin, I mean that'd be the craziest thing that probably ever happened in MMA history if that ever did take place. So if the fight does happen and Punk goes in there and does some damage and looks fantastic, that'll be unbelievable. I'll give him all the respect in the world at that point. So
that's not good either, man. that makes it even worse. In my opinion, it's better if he goes in there, puts up a fight and gets put down instead of him going in there and knocking him out. Because if he knocks him out, can you imagine the ridicule we would get as a sport from like, oh, dude, some old washed-up wrestler went over there, trained for like a year, and then beat up some dude in your octagon? Like, come on.
Dude, right?
True. Agree. I agree with your point. I see your point exactly. Yeah, you're right about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's possible. All right. Anything else you guys want to bring up before we end the show?
Free Ariel Helwani? Oh, no. Never mind.
No, ban that motherfucker again. All right. I don't even want to get into it. This is for like one of my morning glory shows. I will rant away and lose my fucking mind. So I'm gonna save my wrath for that one. Mostly because Andy will start like cussing me out on the comments on YouTube if I say one word about this motherfucker. So
message me before you start that morning glory so I can start poking the bear.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Anyway, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Shout out to Andrew Reed, of course. Mike Jarvis, Jody was on here. Appreciate you coming on here. Everyone else that watched, we had a pretty good stream of viewers today. Appreciate you guys all tuning in and hanging with us for a while. You can follow Jesse at Spawat1983. Did I fuck that up again?
No, you're good.
We're good. All right, Dave, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I changed the Twitter handle's different now. Remember, it was VZ, but it's just Dave's MMA Brief, DAVES MMA Brief on Twitter. Catch me on ESPN Radio 1017. Catch me next time. We'll be doing some shows in the coming weeks, breaking down all these cards, and looking forward to a couple weeks out, and then we'll be refreshed, back to it. A lot of shit to break down. If you're looking forward to that week. Definitely.
We're working on some new things coming up here, a couple new shows, at least one, and when we have that figured out and solidified, we'll make that announcement. You can follow me at Elaw31 on Twitter, at CrossBonesMMA is the page Twitter, and appreciate you guys hanging with us. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys later.
Peace.